All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about Tyler Boyd, the wide receiver, signing with the Tennessee Titans. So, has spent his entire career with the Cincinnati Bengals, was a free agent, and didn't seem like the Bengals were going to bring him back. And I kept talking about him for weeks, about what team should sign him and where he should go. But it ended up being the Tennessee Titans, which kind of makes sense because Brian Callahan, who used to be with the Bengals, is now with the Titans. So I understand now. I get that connection because at first I was like the Titans, but that does make sense. So he signed with the Tennessee Titans. It was a 1-year deal, worth up to $4.5 million, and these are his career stats from 2016 to 2023: 513 catches on 753 targets for 6,000 receiving yards and 31 touchdowns in an 8-year run with the Bengals. So actually, I wanted to pull up the graphic I have of that, and that is courtesy of footballreference.com. So these are his stats, to actually see him. And, he's been a receiver that has relatively stayed healthy. 2017, he only played in 10 games. But other than that, I mean, he really hasn't missed a lot of time. His two best seasons were 2018 and 2019. Had over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2018, 5 touchdowns in 2019. But then you see the receiving yards, start to go down because they drafted T. Higgins and then they drafted Jamar Chase. But even with that, I mean, in 2021, he still posted, over 800 yards, had 5 touchdowns in 2021. That was Jamar Chase's rookie year. I mean, he's still, he was a good number 3 wide receiver for the Bengals. And he could be a number 2 on other teams. And I think the Titans are getting a solid receiver. I think he's going to be 30. But I think when you look at the Titans now and their receiving core, you got Calvin Ridley, who they signed to a big contract. You got DeAndre Hopkins as well. I mean, I like that trio of wide receivers. Now, I'm not going to say it's one of the best trios in the NFL. I think if you go back to 2018, 2019, yeah, that would be one of the best trios in the NFL. But, those guys are getting older. Ridley still had a good year. Hopkins was okay last year. But they are really banking on Wil Levis to take a big jump in year 2. They have surrounded him with talent, both at the wide receiver position and at running back. They brought in Tony Pollard, and you're hoping that Tony Pollard bounces back, has a better 2024. I'm not saying he was bad in 2023, but but he wasn't as good as the previous season. And you're hoping a year removed from his injury that he could be back to what he was before the injury. And if that's the case, that's good for Wil Levis. You can take the pressure off of him with a good running game. But yeah, I mean, the trio of wide receivers of Ridley, Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd, I mean, you got to like it. I think that's a good trio of receivers to have. And like I said, the Titans are giving Wil Levis the tools to be successful. So he's got to go out there and do it. And I just realized I didn't change the segment title on the bottom. But yeah, I mean, they're giving him weapons to be successful. So he's just got to go out there and prove it. He showed flashes. He had a good debut, but after that, yeah, it was kind of hit or miss. So now you add, 2 veteran wide receivers in Ridley and now in Tyler Boyd to go along with Hopkins. You had Tony Pollard. Yeah, I mean, let's see what Wil Levis can do. The problem is, you look at the division, and it's going to be tough because you got the Texans there, you got the Colts who are going to be good, the Jags. I mean, I still look at the Titans as I'd rank them 4th in the division right now. Now, that's just my opinion. I mean, that doesn't mean that that's going to end up happening, but that's how I look at it. Because we got to see what we got to see what Anthony Richardson can do too, because he didn't play that much. But even with him getting hurt, the Colts, they were a couple plays away from making the playoffs instead of the Texans. Because they just lost to the Texans in, the final game of the regular season. TJ Goodson doesn't drop that pass by Gardner Minshew. I mean, who knows what happens? So, I still like the Colts. The Jags, the free fall last season, the collapse, yeah, that was concerning. But with Trevor Lawrence, I think they should be able to bounce back. But right now, I like the Texans as the favorites. But the Titans, they could be a part of that conversation. If Wil Levis can make take a massive jump in year 2, then the Titans are in good shape. But if not, that's a problem. And in my next segment, Wil Levis may be a part of that segment on quarterbacks that are facing most pressure in 2024. Because look, the Titans, they have invested a lot in this offense. They really did surround. Now again, like this trio of wide receivers, you're not going to rank them. I mean, I don't think I'd put them in my top 5 when it comes to trios, because I know I did a segment on trios of wide receivers. But I think it's a good enough trio that can get the job done. So, now it's up to Wil Levis. Because like I said, had an impressive debut. Had the 4 touchdowns? He had 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. But, and then after that, it was kind of hit or miss. I mean, they did have that comeback victory against the Dolphins late in the year. But, they got blown out by Jacksonville. They lost a close game to the Steelers. Yeah, Wil Levis has to prove people wrong now. Show that you're the guy. And they brought in an offensive-minded head coach. And, like I've been saying, they brought in weapons for him to be successful. And Tyler Boyd adds to that. He's been a productive wide receiver throughout his career, as you can see here. So, you add him with Ridley, who's now, now this is his second full year after really, missing basically 2 years. And, looked good at times, but, you want him to be more consistent. And you still got DeAndre Hopkins. So, I mean, I like their trio of wide receivers. So it's really up to the quarterback. So, but again, when I look at this division, for me, there's still kind of that 4th place team. Because again, I like what the Colts did last year. And, Jacksonville, I expect them to bounce back. And then you got the Texans, who are the class of the AFC South. I look at them as the favorites. So this division is going to be, I think this division is going to be very competitive as well. Now, I don't think it's not like the AFC North. The AFC North is the best division in football. But, this division in its own right can be competitive. And at one point, this division was kind of a laughing stock. I think I said that recently. But now, they got young quarterbacks across the board. And, with C.J. Stroud, I expect him to be even better in year 2. Trevor Lawrence, I know last year was kind of a step back, but I expect him to, rebound. Then it's Anthony Richardson and Wil Levis. Because Anthony Richardson is going to have to go out there and prove it for a full season. Like I said, I like the Colts right now just because, they got close to making the playoffs last year. And, this was with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. You know, but he's going to have to go out there and prove that he's the guy for a full season. And especially Wil Levis, too. So, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited when these teams play against each other. So, but yeah, I mean like I said, it's up to Wil Levis now, because like I said, the Titans, they really invested in this offense. But also another thing too is just they really went back on. I mean, well, they really regret what they did a couple of years ago, trading A.J. Brown. Because now, they signed Hopkins last year. Then you signed Ridley and Tyler Boyd. I mean, I guess because the other thing, too, is I guess they kind of figured that because, they still got some young wide receivers on their team, below these guys. Because, I mean, these are going to be the top 3 on the depth chart, you would imagine. But I think they really expected Treylon Burks to be A.J. Brown's replacement. And that just has not panned out. So that's why now they went out and they signed these veterans, because they're just like, Treylon Burks really hasn't developed into that receiver that they've hoped for. But Mike Vrabel wasn't happy when they traded A.J. Brown. And when they played them in 2022, A.J. Brown torched them. And now A.J. Brown went to a Super Bowl, and they did lose, but played well in that Super Bowl. He at least scored a touchdown in that Super Bowl. I don't remember his exact stat line, but he did have a touchdown in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. But yeah, I mean, they're trying to rewrite the wrong there and, better this receiving core by signing veterans. And, these veterans can still produce, but, they're not in their primes like A.J. Brown is. And A.J. Brown is, I think, 25, 26 years old. These guys are all around 30 or already 30. So, again, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about the Tyler Boyd signing. I think it was a good signing. Again, 1 year, $4.5 million. I mean, that's, I think that's a good deal for the Titans. And again, that just adds another veteran receiver to their wide receiver room. And, hopefully that helps Wil Levis take a big jump in year 2. So before I go to break, just want to remind you guys once again. So I'm just going to get the graphic back up here. So yeah, reminding you guys again, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show. Makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we are going to talk about the quarterbacks that are going to be facing the most pressure in 2024, and Wil Levis might be a part of that conversation. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.